Alright, hi everyone. Feel like yapping. It's kind of late and I actually probably should go to bed. This is my issue. I come across the videos and then I read comments and then the comments inspire my thought process and then I have to make a video talking about it because ugh, I can't rationalize things. And maybe I just need to stop reading ignorant comments people make. But this is what I think really angers me about, I would say, pro choice logic, pro choice ideology, or pro choice arguments. It's basically just like the underlying issue I have is the slippery slope that, you know, allowing abortion leads to just people promoting more violence, um, devaluing the lives of people over very minuscule things. Like this is where I see things get headed because I always think bigger picture. And basically the arguments that people are making to support abortion, which at the end of the day, I don't know how else to say it because it's like the reality of abortion is we're using abortion as a means of population control, but also as a means of determining the value of some other people's lives on the basis of outside factors and influences. Basically, oh, I will determine whether or not you get to exist or not. Actually, it's not even whether you get a person gets to exist, whether someone gets to be born or not, based off of these extrinsic factors that are subjective to individual people's like opinions basically. Well, I don't think a child who would end up in foster care is going to have a good life, so I'm going to abort that child, and I think that's okay, an okay thing. We're using abortion as a means to quote unquote end potential suffering, but it's really just the this argument to me is just such a dangerous and a really bad way to end abuse because I say this every video. It's like what is more abusive than killing someone? You're talking about, oh, I can kill this child before it's born and that way it prevents him from having a life of suffering. You've already ended their life in the most worst way possible, which is the worst type of suffering you could give to someone. You ended their life before they could even be born, and you're pretending like doing that you did them a service because you killed them before they were born, and then you're using the potential, you're using something you don't know. And what I really feel like it just comes down to is other people shouldn't be deciding what someone else's life, the value of someone else's life. Like, why is it okay for other people to determine someone else gets whether or not someone else has the right to live or not? Like, I feel like the basis of a pro-choice stance is just saying like, well, a person's mother gets to decide whether or not their own child's life is valuable or not. And I feel like that's like realistically not a great thing to do. It's basically just like it gives mothers are allowed to kill their own children is what abortion has created. And then the premise just keeps getting darker and darker and worse. I just had someone defend being an ableist because in their head a disabled person doesn't is not worthy of having life. All of these people are trying to negate other people's livelihoods. You're literally saying people are better, it's better for people to be dead than have to face and live with certain circumstances. It's like showing how twisted people's logic truly is. Like, people think someone's life has to be perfect. They have to have rich parents. They can't be poor. They can't be in foster care. They can't be disabled. You know, these are all reasons people give for why we need abortion, right? They say, well, a kid might suffer in the future, therefore we should just kill them before they suffer, as if killing someone is not suffering. You know, it's like there's nothing worse than death, in my opinion. Killing someone is like the final boss of suffering. It's like someone can face abuse and serve. The fact that they still have their life, though, is a blessing. But now you're acting as though killing someone is doing them a service. And like, this is the twisted logic people have around abortion. And I really just think it comes down to people have normalized something that should have never been normalized. And I also just think, to be quite honest, it's like I don't really want to talk about this anymore because it just makes me sad. Honestly, it makes me sad. And it's just like, the people who are like, well, if you don't want like abortion, don't get one. Well, obviously I'm not getting one, but what makes me sad is that so many people are abusing their own children's lives and then not recognizing the grand the dysfunction, the the underlying the underlying issues with allowing or justifying killing people over subjective opinions of someone's life being valuable or not. It's just like, it's not, it's really just such an unfair, it's an unfair system overall, regardless of how you try to rationalize it, because you don't actually know the value of someone else. Like, you don't actually know what that person would grow up to become. And you're also trying to determine whether or not that person is willing. It's like, you don't know what someone's willing to go through because they value their life, right? You know, there's disabled people who say, I value my life. I'm grateful I'm here. I'm grateful for my life regardless of my disability, and they are glad they exist. They're glad they're here despite what other people might think less of them and less of their lives. And what you have are the people who think less of other people's lives over subjective things that they've never actually experienced for themselves, trying to use their own sense of what is or isn't valuable, or what is suffering, or what is, it's like you're trying to determine whether someone else would want to, um it's like you're taking away the choice from that person, right? It's like, we don't support suicide. If someone's unhappy with their life, or someone's suffering and they're like, my life is horrible, miserable, I guess I'm gonna end my life because I don't want to live this way, right? We don't support that choice. We're not celebrating when people choose suicide because their life was horrendous, right? But y'all support killing people over the potential or an assumed suffering that they have not actually experienced yet. And then you're taking the assumed suffering that that person may or may not have faced in the future to determine that their life is not worth living and that it's okay for you to just kill them. And that person isn't even getting to decide for themselves. Like, what if that it's like, you can't, it's not, you can't do this. It's like, it's not fair. It's not fair, it's not rational, it's not logical, because you're taking away someone else's autonomy. Your own autonomy over your own body does not apply to another person's life. It's like, the reason you don't have the right to harm another human being is because It's not your life. You shouldn't be doing something to another person that you wouldn't want done to you. But also, why are we doing things to other humans that weren't done to you? Every person getting an abortion was not aborted. It's like, this doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. And then it's like the child doesn't have any say over their own death. It's just someone else telling them, telling that child, or assuming the value of that child's life is not worth it. And then that other person making the choice to end their life. The child didn't consent to its life being ended the same way they didn't consent to their life being created. But why does someone else get to choose death for their own child or for that baby over circumstances that they don't even know that child will actually face in the future? It's like, shouldn't every person get to decide for themselves what they're willing to live through, what amount of suffering they can overcome in their life in order to have life? It's just like, if someone decides their life is too hard to commit suicide, that's sad. We don't celebrate that. But now y'all are using the people who say, I've suffered so greatly in life because of this, but they're still alive at the end of the day. It's like, if the suffering was so bad, we would see, as bad as people pretend it is, then everyone would be fighting to kill themselves anytime they faced any amount of suffering in life. And the truth of the matter is, when you are a victim of abuse, that doesn't make you less worthy of living. Someone being disabled doesn't make them less worthy of living or having a life. And if people who are disabled aren't fighting to end their lives, if people who are in foster care aren't fighting to end their lives, if people who are victims of abuse aren't fighting to end their lives, why are we fighting to end the lives of human beings before they're born, who may or may not experience some of these circumstances I've just told you about? There's no justification to me. It's just like, it's these arguments to me are just very nonsensical arguments, because for one, it's like you're still taking away someone else's life over an assumed value you've given to that person. You also are devaluing the life of that person. You're saying no life is better than a life with some suffering or with suffering, right? I've suffered in life. I'm still grateful to be here. I don't think my life is not valuable just because I've experienced some suffering. It's like, there's so many you never know. You don't know what someone will go through in their life, right? Someone can be born in all of the perfect parameters that you claim. You know, people are born able-bodied, get in accidents later in life disabled, and they still appreciate their life. So why are we telling someone, or why are we trying to justify abortion over a child having a disability? Why does a disability mean it's okay to kill someone? Why does someone potentially ending up in foster care, which, by the way, whether or not a child ends up in foster care is not that child's fault anyways. Someone being disabled, it's not their fault either. It's really ultimate victim blaming is how I see it. Like, you're literally telling someone who's a victim of something outside of their control that they deserve death over being in an abusive situation that they didn't choose for themselves, or it's better for them to be dead than grow up in poverty. It's better for you to be dead than have a disability. It's like, these are the values you're assigning to lives when you try to justify abortion by using those things. That's why I feel like when people, like, this is why I feel like it's hard for me to read those arguments, because I'm following people's logic to its conclusion, right? If you're justifying killing a child because they might end up in foster care, you're saying your child's life is not valuable because foster care is such a horrible experience for someone that you think them being dead and having no life and never being born is better than them potentially growing up in foster care. That's the logical conclusion of of someone making a statement like that. It's why when people are doing these debates, people get upset because they don't recognize their own arguments are very logically inconsistent, but what the conclusion of them is. The conclusion of those arguments is that you don't think someone who's in foster care, you think someone in foster care, you think a child or a preborn child, to be specific, who has the potential to end up in foster care is better to just be killed or aborted, terminated, whatever you want to call it. Abortion is ending that child's life regardless. It doesn't matter what language you use. Everyone knows an abortion kills another person. It ends another person's life. You're taking away the possibility of that child being born by ending its life while it's still in the womb. It's just like, I don't know why people are pretending there's not a harm being done when it's maybe the most obvious harm being done to another person. I don't know. I really don't know how people justify it in their minds. I mean, I don't really want to understand how people do it. I think it really just, people justify it by just not caring. Or I just think they really justify it by convincing themselves they did that child a favor by ending its life. And I feel like it's almost like it's a coping mechanism. Like, the only way you could feel good about ending that person's life is by convincing yourself you prevented that person from some sort of suffering, even though you don't actually know what that person's life could have been or would have been. And that person might have said, hey, I might suffer in the future, but I'm still glad I'm here. I'm glad I exist. And then I get it. There's people who... Oh, it's raining. I was like, what is that noise? I get that there's people in situations, in foster care, in poverty, who are disabled, and they maybe think less of themselves, or they wish they had something else. And so it's like, I understand some of the rationale, but at the same time, the people complaining about their lives being so miserable and horrible, they're still alive. It's like they don't actually know death is better than that. They're just depressed. And it's like, if they truly believe death was better, you would see the suicide rates for those people in those situations be way higher than what it actually is. It's not high for people in foster care. It's not high for people. I would say mental health struggles, yeah, that might be higher for someone in foster care. But suicide? No, those people aren't killing themselves because they are in foster care, or because they are poor, or because of those things. It's like, when I remember studying suicide rates in college, because my major was in psychology, and it was lowest amongst the most disenfranchised populations. Basically, the more disenfranchised a person is, the more they value their lives. Like, slaves weren't committing suicide when they were enslaved. It's like if you already know your life's at risk, it's almost like you value it more. It's like when your life is actually at risk, when there's people actively trying to end your life or trying to take your life, it matters to you that much more. That's why disenfranchised populations typically have the lowest rates of suicide. The way society tries to twist it is they want you to believe that the more suffering you endure in life, the less valuable your life is, but it's actually the opposite trend is what we see. It's like if you're trying to convince people that someone being in foster care, which I don't think we should, we want people to end up in foster care, but the truth of the matter, kids end up in foster care because their parents failed them, because adults failed them by not giving them giving them, it's just like it's such a hard situation because you have two things can be true. It can be true that a parent really wanted that child, but didn't have the means to support or take care, or was struggling in their own way mentally, or has a drug problem or has an alcohol problem, but they truly loved and valued the life of their child, and that's why they didn't consider aborting that child, right? And so are we going to fault people now? It's like, are we going to tell parents that if their child ends up in foster care, that it's the parents' fault for not aborting them because foster care is such a horrendous thing to put a child through, that it's better that we abort those kids than they be alive and in foster care? Is that, it's like that's the slippery slope I'm talking about, is like the values, the underlying values, value or moral of making these arguments is what I personally take issue with, because I don't think it's good to tell someone that the better option was killing their child than their child having a life with suffering. And I also don't think it's right for other people to determine the suffering someone else is or is not capable of enduring. You know, it's almost like I'm going to assume you don't value your life, or I'm going to assume that suffering, you have a life full of suffering, and I'm going to make that assumption, and I'm going to say because you might suffer, your life is not as valuable, and therefore I can just end your life altogether. But we don't argue that for people who are already born, right? You know, these are arguments people make only for children in the womb. But you know, when people out of the womb, when people are born, we're not arguing that the solution to their suffering is to commit suicide. We're not telling people the solution to suffering is for you to just be dead. So it's like, why are we applying that logic to people before birth but not after birth? It's like, what's the magical thing? Once you're born, what happens that suddenly, you know, it's I don't even want to say what I'm saying, because the slippery slope is that there are people who are going to start arguing to kill people after birth. That's already starting to happen. There's been certain laws or legislation that are now saying you can kill or abort a child after birth, which at that point is just like full on murder. I mean, I do think it's murder. You're killing the child whether it's before it's born or after, but it's just like people only see it as being wrong after birth because they I think people have convinced themselves that your life before birth is somehow a completely different life than the one you have after you're born, when in actuality the same life you had in your mother's womb is the life you have after you're born. It's like they've convinced themselves that your life in the womb is separate from after you're born. Like somehow you were alive when you were growing in your mother's womb, and it's like after you were born suddenly you hold value. And I feel like truthfully most people say that, but they don't actually practice that, because why do we celebrate um baby showers? Why do we celebrate gender reveal parties? It's like if a child in the womb really had no value up until birth, we wouldn't be celebrating the life of that child before they were born. It's like the logical inconsistencies constantly there. But I just think it's like there's people who are going to start arguing what I'm saying, because people are going to realize they have to be logically consistent. And when you're logically consistent on the side of pro abortion, you're going to start rationalizing killing people for any type of suffering that a person might have, which is why assisted suicide is now being promoted in some places like Canada. It's legal now for someone to say, hey, I'm suffering, I want to die, but I don't want to do it myself, so I want you to end my life for me via either pills or whatever. It's like going to a doctor so that they can kill you, basically. I just think it's crazy. It's crazy what the world promotes and believes is good versus what the Bible actually says is good. Um Anyways, I really just think at the end of the day, I know I'm not able to stop someone from being pro choice or getting an abortion, right? I just actively am not going to support those things because I truly believe they're evil. Like, to its core evil. But I see that a lot more now and a lot stronger now because of my faith. And I feel like in a lot of ways it's just like you you value other people more when you're really a Christian who loves people. It's like I don't wish death on anyone. So I don't support people being killed or harmed in any circumstance, right? So why would I support, like, if I don't support abuse, if I don't support violence, why would I support abortion, knowing it's violence and harm towards another human being? And it's like I have to be logically consistent in what I believe. And I think what's going to happen is pro-abortion is it really is just pro-murder. It's pro-murder, pro-violent, packaged under women's rights, cleverly packaged with um, women's rights. But it really is the underlying root, I would say, value is you're pro murder or pro death, since people don't like if you say murder, but it's pro death. You think death is a solution to suffering. How is death a solution to suffering? It's also just like the people wishing death on other people haven't experienced death for themselves, right? All you've experienced is life while you're actively promoting death for some other people. Like abortion, you're fighting for the death of children in the womb. But you haven't experienced death and you weren't aborted. I really just think it doesn't really matter. Every time I make these videos or arguments, I really just think to myself, am I waste I don't want to say I'm wasting my time, but it's really just, it makes me sad. It makes me sad that so many people don't recognize the harm the harmful, that there's a harmful rhetoric and concept and slippery slope that comes with supporting abortion. And I also think it's plain to see for me as a Christian, but I think a lot of people have a hard time seeing it because they're so blinded by the their emotions and feelings and the manipulation tactics that, you know, the abortion industry uses, because, you know, they've manipulated women into believing abortion is their right, abortion is their choice, abortion is their health care. It's like abortion is health care. It's like all of these mantras that the abortion industry pushes out for women. It's propaganda. It's like telling women those things. You're telling women to keep repeating those things until they believe it's true, even though it's a lie, even though that's not the truth. It's just a clever, manipulative way to convince someone an evil is actually good. It's propaganda. It's called what's the term in psychology? Subliminal well, it's not even subliminal messaging. I mean, it's kind of subliminal, but it starts with the slogan. You get people to keep repeating it. You post it everywhere. How many times do you see abortion is healthcare? Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is healthcare. They want you to keep repeating it until you believe it's true, and now you're convinced abortion is healthcare. When someone tells you abortion is murder, you're like, no, it's not murder, it's healthcare. And when it's my body, my choice, my body, my choice, that slogan, that repetition, that mantra is all a way to cleverly manipulate women into justifying evil. It's manipulation. I'm awake enough to recognize that. Some people aren't. Some people are too blinded by, like I said, the subliminal messaging, the propaganda. They're convinced it's my body, my choice. Even though the choice you're making is for your own child's body and not your own. Objectively speaking, when you're getting an abortion, you're ending the life of your child's life. You're not getting an abortion on yourself. You're getting an abortion on your child. You're having the child's life be ended and affected and body. And then I also think abortion affects women negatively, though. I see so many videos of women saying they regret it. Like, I literally just saw this video of this girl, and she was like, she had just had an abortion, and she was like, I regret it. I shouldn't have done this. I don't know why I did this. I feel like horrible. And there's people saying like women feel that way because there's pro-life people forcing their beliefs on people. No, people feel that way because you're going to recognize it eventually. How can you tell someone? It's like pretending abortion is not doing some it's not ending your own child's life. Is the reason why when people get abortions and then they meet the reality of the abortion and they feel horrendous after, it's because they were lying to themselves prior to getting that abortion. When you understand and recognize the truth of abortion, you don't want to participate in it. You wouldn't want to do that. But people are manipulated. I also think it's just like people are not willing to give value to children in the womb. It's like they are when it's wanted, but if it's not wanted, then we can, it's I don't know. It's such a subjective measure of life. You know, if your mother wants you, you get to live. If your mother doesn't want you, oh, you die. And we call that fair. And we call that moral. And we call that good. If your mother doesn't want you, you're not as valuable as babies who are wanted. And this is why I also think for me, it's like there's so much logical inconsistencies in pro choice arguments because you'll, on one end, have people being like, oh, I just support whatever choice someone wants to make. Whatever you want choice you make, you can do, and I'm just going to support whatever each woman wants to do. But that logic then will never apply to anything but abortion in their eyes, because if I want to make the choice to, abuse my child after they're born, I don't see people arguing, oh, well, it's your body, your child, your choice. I really feel like that should be the slogan. Not my body, my choice, your child, your choice, because what you're arguing is um, women have the right to end their own child's life. It's their choice. I don't think it's a choice a woman should be making to end the life. I think it's like you'll recognize the horrors of it if you have any sort of empathy at all. It's like when you're a mother and you have a child, that's why I said abortion goes against the nature of woman. Like woman mothers mothers nurture their children. That's what loving mothers do. It's going against your own nature to not protect the life of your child. It's like when a woman has an abortion, I think it breaks a piece of themselves, their selves, because it's not in our nature to harm your own child. And it's like when you recognize that that's what you actually did, that's heartbreaking. I think a lot of women struggle after having an abortion because it's like you went against your own nature, but also your child is a piece of you. You're aborting your own child. It's like that's an extension of yourself. Now obviously your child's life is separate from the mother's life. Yes, a child is dependent on its mother in the very early stages, after birth too, because people like to pretend like, oh, it's a parasite when it's in the womb. No, it's not. It's literally the most unique relationship is a mother has with its child, is when it's in when a mother is carrying her child in her womb. Like, I don't even understand. It's like the way people attack motherhood, attack femininity, attack children. And I said this before, it's like the abortion industry literally pits women against their own children. And it's like it goes against the nature of woman. It goes against the nurturing aspect of womanhood to fight to protect and nurture their own children. So it's like I personally think people suffer mentally after abortions not because there's people pro-life telling them the truth. I think it's because they know the truth after they've had an abortion. It's like where a pro-life person isn't lying when they say you're ending the life of your own child. That's the reality. That's what's happening. I'm not trying to manipulate people. I'm not trying to lie to people. That's just the reality of what's happening. The manipulation is happening on the lies that the abortion industry is telling women by trying to convince them their own children hold no value and are just clumps of cells. You have an entire industry whose entire premise is convincing women that their own children don't matter, that their own children are expendable, that their own children are discardable. that goes against like the nature of humanity for a woman to stop valuing the life of their own child. Like, you should ugh. It's almost like if people don't want to see it, they're not going to see it. If people don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. People just want to believe what they want to believe. It's like, I've always recognized that even if I hold a certain viewpoint, other people are not going to hold that same viewpoint, right? I can't force people to believe or agree with me, but I also feel like it's just like we have to be objective about things too. If you're lying to yourself about the reality of abortions and then you have one, and then you come to regret it. I don't even want to say that women are lying to themselves so much as they're being lied to and manipulated by the abortion industry, as well as pro-choice logic that is irrational and inconsistent. But again, the abortion industry literally profits off of pitting women against their own children and convincing women that their own children are burdens and parasites and clumps of cells. They hold no value, they hold no meaning. And then when a child's wanted, suddenly it's the most meaningful, beautiful, precious blessing gift of God. You know, these two things both exist if you're pro-choice, right? A child is both beautiful, blessing, precious, miracle, a life worth protecting. When it's wanted only, right? If that child's not wanted, oh yeah, clump of cells. It's a parasite. It's just sucking the life out of you. It's just like logically inconsistent, contradicting views of the child in the womb on the basis of whether or not the mother wants it or not. To me, I can't just go around acting like sometimes children are clumps of cells and sometimes children are precious, valuable, meaningful human beings that deserve to be protected. I'd rather just believe they're always valuable human beings worth being protected than sometimes claim they're just clumps of cells that don't matter. I would rather be logically consistent with believing children's lives in the wombs matter and hold value and are meaningful and purposeful and are beautiful blessings and gifts from God than sometimes go around calling babies in the womb clumps of cells whose lives don't matter. I'm not going to do that. If other people want to, can't stop them. I just think it's, I don't know. I also just think the whole going back to the argument of people can just do whatever they want. It's if you don't want an abortion, don't get one, XYZ, that type of argument. It's like afterbirth though, it's this was what I was getting at and lost the plot. You know, if a woman after has children and decides to abuse them, we're not like, oh well, it's her children, her choice, it doesn't affect you. If she wants to abuse her children, she can abuse her children. If you don't want to abuse your children, don't abuse your children. But if she wants to abuse but if this woman wants to abuse her children, she's allowed to abuse her children. It's her children to abuse. You have no right to tell this woman she shouldn't abuse her children. That is how that the logic of that argument sounds to me. It's like if something's wrong, you don't support that action regardless of whether it actually affects you or not, right? I'm not going to go around telling people. It's like, it's not like, you know, a flavor not liking a flavor of ice cream. Like, if you don't like chocolate ice cream, then don't eat it. If she likes chocolate ice cream, she can eat all the chocolate. It's like, no one actively is arguing against someone doing something that is, not harmful to another human being. But if I know someone's doing something harmful, intentionally causing harm, or abusive, I'm not gonna sit around and be like, oh, she's allowed to abuse her children because it's her children and it doesn't affect me and I don't have to care and it's her choice. People can do whatever they want. That's not a logic that I think follows in most situations where harm is being done to another human being. But because we've convinced women the choice to end the life of their own child in the womb is a choice they're allowed to have, it's like we're suddenly not allowed to touch that. I don't know. Again, I think this argument is going to continue on until it's like you can't come to a middle ground on respecting the life of a child in the womb and valuing it. It's like it's either always valuable or never valuable. And the unfortunate part is that right now we're allowing a subjective moral to wreak havoc, basically. And the subjective moral is what allows evil to happen. I want to state that very clearly. Anytime you have a subjective moral, it allows evil. Objective morals mean this is always wrong. Subjective morals are like, well, it's sometimes wrong, but we can allow it sometimes. It allows evil to persist. That's not a moral or ethic that I personally would stand behind. A subjective moral or a subjective ethic. Because I feel like it's inconsistent and contradictory in practice. And there's also not an objective stance on the life of that child's value. It's just like, well, if the mother doesn't want the child, we just don't care and pretend like it's not a life and pretend like it's not another human being. I don't know. I think I've literally said everything I could say about this topic, I think, at this point. And I really just think it's like I care because I think it's such I feel like it's a normalized evil. We've normalized this evil in our society, and I think I believe it's so wrong. And I do believe, like, years from now, people are going to look back at the abortion industry the same way people look at slavery. And be like, how did we allow this to happen? How were women so convinced their children's lives didn't matter and were doing these barbaric things and going to doctors who claimed they saved lives? They were going to doctors to end the lives of their own children. They're going to look back at our society hundreds of years from now and say how evil this generation was because we allowed abortion to persist. The thing about morals in a societal values is that they change over time. But objective morals stand the test of time. Societies can be more or less evil throughout history. That's been proven. The Holocaust, an evil time. Slavery, an evil time. The genocides that are happening all over the world, evil. I don't know. I just recognize, when the further society moves from God, the more wicked and evil things take place in the world. I believe that wholeheartedly as a Christian. When people don't believe in God, when society moves away from belief in God, the world gets more evil. And the world gets less evil as more people believe in God. With and I want to say this, but I need to make a whole nother video. Without God, there's not objective morality is part of that argument and rationale, I would say. But you can actually study this there's like real studies that show, the more religious a society was, the less crime, the less evil, the less hardships. And then as societies moved away from religion, they got wicked, they got more evil, you had more crime. And it's like the world just goes through these cycles, the same cycles over and over again, where at one period you have a lot of more religious people, and then at other periods you have a lot less religious people. And societies changes based off of how religious people are. The Typically the most safest countries are more religious. I keep hearing people talk about Poland and how safe that country is. They have some of the strictest gun laws. They have very strict laws on abortion. They have very strict immigration laws. They are also a highly religious country. The safest countries, the countries with the least amount of crimes, are countries where religion and belief in God is very, very high. And I guess that's why people are like, we don't want your religion. It's like wicked people don't want religion, because religion puts an end to wickedness. I say that, and I realize as I'm saying that's like, it's actually the truth. It's like religion is supposed to prevent evil, right? Not allow evil. It stops evil. And the people who don't like religion are typically people who believe the laws are too restrictive, right? Oh, you're not allowed to do this. Your religion doesn't allow you to do that. It doesn't allow you to do that. Yeah, the strict religious laws have objective morals that most people are not willing to uphold because they'd rather do things that are self-serving. I don't know, y'all. I said a whole lot. And a lot of people, I mean, there's people who agree with me, there's people who disagree with me. I personally share my thoughts, not really for validation. I don't need validations for as far as my own opinions, because I make my opinions out of my own free will. I don't care about whether what I believe or what I think is popular, what society thinks. You know, there's going to be people that are going to hate. But my opinion is my opinion. Other people are allowed their opinions. Everyone's allowed their opinions. Some opinions are just better than others. Just saying. And some opinions are more moral than others. Some opinions actually are better than other opinions. Not every opinion is equal. Every opinion can exist, but not every opinion is good, to say the least, I guess. Alright, that's it. I need to go to bed.